G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Free Kick on Air. This one for round 5 teams and hot topics. As always, I'm joined more than ably by fellow co-host Jono. 1, how are you going? And 2, have you managed to come down from cloud 9 after your, another top 100 round rank?
Yeah, no, it was a good round for me. I'm feeling pretty happy with it. But this is definitely the week that I've felt the most uncertain on my trades in a long time. I feel like there's a lot of moving pieces this week. So it's going to be interesting to see, how things fall, because I do think a lot of the Sunday teams as well will probably determine what I end up doing. How are you feeling this week?
It's basically the same, maybe not the high, except maybe just like a slightly, more muted version. Like my highs weren't as high as yours last week. Mm-hmm. And also because of the held over cash that I have, my trades are uncertain, but I've got a bit more flexibility and I'm not searching for value as much.
Yep.
But it still felt very unclear. I've had some, people ask me personally, like, who are the targets this week? And I'm like, well, yeah, this is a tough one. This is a much tougher week than we've had elsewhere in the first month. May as well then jump straight into teams. We'll go with Collingwood and Sydney first, 105 Victoria Park. Only 2 changes in this game. Out go Annie Lee and for Collingwood and Beck Privatelli for Sydney. And then Geordie Allen comes in for her first game of the season for the Pies. And then first-year player Amelia Martin returns after having been dropped for just 1 week. This game probably doesn't have a whole lot of instability. We're not really seeing anybody play or do much new in the last few weeks. The only question here is Zippy, and is she a trade out? That's probably the biggest question for a lot of teams this week. And I'll fold in a question for you. Is it acceptable to trade out Zippy, use that cash to upgrade 2 other positions and field Sierra Greaves?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I feel like it's tough building a rookie on that midfield lineup, just because there are a few positions that can go that consistent 100+ score. Like, you're not really expecting that out of anyone on any other line except for probably Mimstrom. So, I think Zippy Fish is one who can get close, and for her, a 60 is a down score. Whilst with Sierra Greaves, I know she's gone back-to-back 70s, but it would worry me with the idea of going, to a rookie. Geelong have been not necessarily hugely restrictive, but they're a very good side, and I think on their day they can be pretty tough to score against. I would probably advise against that.
And I've just had a bit of a scroll down, and there is a name in there, in Grace Egan, who may immediately come in and take some more midfield times. Although I think it would be mad to try and take time away from Greaves, given that she has been one of the few bright spots for Richmond so far this year. But maybe we'll dissect the Richmond list later. Yeah. I think it's just a case that Geelong have allowed now a number of big scores to midfielders. And so it's certainly been somewhat fruitful, and Jaden's scale of hardness stuff for the AFLW certainly points to Geelong being an easier midfield matchup. So it's kind of why I was kind of looking in that direction. There's no one otherwise in this game that I'd say is a screaming target. We did have a question, though, about Britt Benici, and I think it might have been underneath a post talking about Fantasy Fix this week. She's now been, she's shown herself to be a good scorer this year. Is she an upgrade target, knowing that we have, at least on these on-airs, discussed the fact that Collingwood have a dreadful matchup run?
Yeah, it's an awkward time to get her just because of that fixture, as you say. I'd probably be happy to
offer 61 too.
Yeah, offer 61. I think she's going to drop in cash almost certainly. So I'd probably want to leave it a little bit longer. I think once they get past this horrible period, like that back half of the season is one I can see her going, quite a few pop scores in a row. So I'm probably going to hold off for the moment is how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was just one where someone had said, why are you not talking about Benici? You said she was good last week. Why is she not a target this week? And I think, it's a lot to do with one bad score, so the price will drop for at least 2 weeks. And then also, their matchup run is bad.
Yeah.
Their next easy one is in round 8. So it's going to be a hot minute before I reckon we see some form that we can be confident in bringing her in for.
Yeah.
In terms of maybe one other thing, you could maybe have a look at Amelia Martin as a downgrade, but I think that's about it for this game. Moving along to Carlton and Gold Coast, a lot of changes here. So start with Gold Coast first. Mira Gervin in, not a particularly relevant name. But then the next two are very relevant. One is a rookie 300k midfielder, Tara Harrington, and then also Charlie Rowbottom. After, I don't know about you, I'd assumed that she was going to be out for many weeks when it was TBC on her injury last week.
Yeah. Quick return.
She's back
in. The theme of the week here.
Yes, and then out go Jamie Stanton, who was injured, Nyali Milne, who was also injured, and then Wallace Randell, who'd been chopping out in defence, has been omitted. And then for Carlton, out go Yasmin Dersma injured, Abby McKay injured, and then Mia Austin omitted again after I thought she'd played pretty well last week. Yeah. That's rough. And then in come Brooke Vickers, Lila Keck returns after being omitted for 1 week. So I think it might just be swapping between Austin and Keck, possibly based on matchup for Carlton. And then another 300k midfield rookie, this time an Irish recruit in Aisling Reedy. This game has almost too much to break down in one go. Yeah. It's a really, really tough one. So I think push comes to shove, Reedy or Harrington, who's your preferred rookie? Because at the moment, I think I prefer Harrington.
Yeah, I probably lean the same way between those two, but I also would note that Brooke Vickers is only 393k. So
that had completely escaped me.
Yeah, I think the fact that they're that cheap after the season they've had in the VFLW, I mean, with Abby McKay out, I can see that sort of being, they step into Lily Goss's role, Lily Goss steps up into Mackay's role. There could be a little bit of time. Could be interesting.
Yeah. I've got her. So Brooke Vickers last played a game in 2023. Yeah. Had a high score of 61. So by no means prolific, but then you did mention her VFLW form. So let's just pull that one up. Not like I'm doing any live research at all.
Pre-season research training. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure her last
90, 136, 106, 108, 94 in the 5 games that she played for the Carlton VFLW team this year, which is very good scoring.
Yeah.
Built off a high disposal game too, so didn't necessarily completely rely on tackles. Had one game with 8 marks as well. It's the type of player where I kind of wish I'd gotten a sense of in the preseason where they were expecting her to play.
Yeah, there's an injury that's keeping her out, I think, more so than form.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more unknown, but I have some more confidence that she can come in and impact straight away.
Yeah, that's fair. I think for Harrington, at least, it was the fact, the reason why I prefer her to Reedy and possibly even to Vickers, but I think you make a good point on just, going with the more experienced option. Harrington is also someone who's come in after finally getting fit. She was another player who'd been injured during the preseason. And behind Havana Harris was the most highly regarded draft pick at Gold Coast. I would say look past the fact that she's been named, she got picked in the mid to late 40s. There were 5, all of Gold Coast draft picks were academy recruits, so no one else had access to them, or Gold Coast were always going to be able to match. So I wouldn't read into that. She has some good pedigree, both as a halfback and as a midfielder. And again, I like the fact that she's coming into debut after having managed to get fit. So that's why I lean in that direction.
Yeah.
What's fascinating as well is between Vickers and Reedy, both of them are probably going to be midfielders. And it will be fascinating to, again, get a sense of who will be more likely to spend time replacing Abby McKay and whether or not it's going to be another player. It could be, like you said, Lily Goss. I would personally love for it to be Ronnie.
Yep.
Because I think that she is just such a difference maker to them.
Yeah.
But it's not one I can say with any confidence. And as you said, you did the preseason research for this. It will be one where, you could lean towards Vickers if you've got that extra cash. But I wouldn't say that it's
definitely not a slam
pick without risk.
Yeah.
Yes. And then in terms of kind of other things to consider, I will be actively watching to see the impact of Charlie Rowbottom back on Niamh McLaughlin's role in the mids.
Yep.
I personally think you'd have to be insane to consider moving her out, given how good she has looked in the 5 quarters that she's played there. Okay, yeah, she wasn't able to maintain a, 1 in every 2 CBA she attends, she converts it into a centre clearance in the game against GWS, but it was damn good from what I saw. And she's just so good at gaining meterage and just makes, she used to play with her hair on fire, but she could kind of get away with it because she's so quick and such a unique problem solver. Yeah. The hair is maybe being just someone's got a bit of an extinguisher out. It's not as hot and out of control anymore. She does play within herself and it's still more than good enough to get around people. And I think it's excellent, but it's just a warning that it might change again.
Well, I think
because Rowbottom is back to take time.
I think the main thing, just to the eye, I think Claudia Whitford, she's had a pretty heavily interrupted preseason and early season. I don't think she's back to full fitness yet. So I think McLaughlin almost needs to be there until Whitford gets back to, full strength.
Yeah. I still think there's a world too where there is maybe one extra body as an inside midfielder who need to rotate through because I do think that Lily Mithen also has looked good inside. And then I'm not sure I could say the same, but Gold Coast at least seem insistent on Maddie Brad-Catasano being someone to roll through CBAs. So just a bit of a balance there to kind of consider. Another player that I just wanted to quickly throw in terms of break evens this week is Mia Salisbury, midfielder, named on the bench, but I think based on Jaden's numbers, she has a break even of 8. So could be someone that you go for. She's not exactly expensive either. She's 331k as a midfielder. And just had a few moments that I liked.
Yeah.
That is, getting a 4 out of the price cycle is always going to help. But obviously that comes with the risk of you don't exactly always want to trade in someone who can score 4. But maybe if you're saying I want to make some guaranteed cash, I wouldn't hate it. It's just, again, not one I have with much conviction. And it's probably a product of the lower information environment that we have for a lot of these kind of bench and younger rookie players in the AFLW that makes it really difficult sometimes to know what to expect for some of these players.
Yeah.
Actually, here's a question. It's another rookie in this game. Would you take a stab at Ella Smith?
Well, that's the one we were talking about earlier in the week. We were basically saying once Rowbottom is back, I think those sort of small bursts that you would drop away, I would be much more hesitant now. Yeah.
Where, if you had to rank Smith, Salisbury, Harrington, forgetting the Carlton options under 400k, what would be your order as a downgrade target?
I would probably go Salisbury, Harrington, then Smith.
Yep.
Would you?
I think that's fair enough. I might go Harrington and then Salisbury and then Smith, but it's very close between 1 and 2.
Well, question back for you then. The 2 deepest forwards are Harris and Dupai for the Gold Coast. And I imagine they're players that people are looking at trading out or trading into.
Yes.
I mean, I'm feeling like on the named sheets, I'm a little bit less confident on Harris. But we were also talking about Depay maybe stepping more into the ruck. And with Lauren Bella still named, I don't see that happening. Is that off the table now?
I don't think it's off the table. I think Reece Shaw has taken obviously a little bit of time to get a game plan together. This is a very young team, but I think he's correctly identified the need for rucks to be able to impact post stoppage or even just post ruck contest. And I think that's part of the reason why Depay was given a greater role at the ruck last week.
Yeah.
And will probably be something that gets turned to again, particularly because, Madison Torpey's a 21-year-old, 20-year-old. Jack Depay will bench press probably more weight than Madison Torpey weighs.
Yeah, probably.
Is my guess.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to create a difference, that's the type of thing you might do, particularly because Carlton is such a good stoppage team, or at least have been in the past. I must admit, I haven't looked at their differential numbers recently. So I think that Depay is a possibility with, again, low confidence. I think I'm happy to trade out Harris, though.
Yeah.
Given how expensive she is. And if you look, she's like a top 12 ruck on price. I actually need to get how high she is ranked in amongst the rucks. But it's very surprising how quickly she's got there. She's not top 12. She's 8th most expensive. Oh, sorry, 8th highest average. And in terms of price, she is... Oh, my computer is now not liking that. But again, another one who's very high, and I think it's a good launching point because there are a number of options this week, both with good runs, and then also you could really take the step up and try and finally bring in Strong.
Yeah.
Alrighty then, moving along to the next game of the weekend. We've got Port Adelaide against Melbourne at Alberton. Melbourne come in completely unchanged, and then for Port Adelaide out go Lily Patterson, who I actually thought had looked pretty good as a rookie, and Cheyenne Hammond, who is injured again. In come Jasmine Evans and Kirsty Lamb. Up front, I think Kirsty Lamb in is just something to keep an eye on again for Ash Woodland.
Yep.
I'm not sure how confident I am in spruiking her as a top forward, or at least she didn't seem to score as well when Lamb was playing inside in the past few weeks.
Yeah.
Before Lamb missed the last game. So I would just be, keeping your eye out for that one. And then, there's a question here in this game. Is Shelley Heath a top target again this week after a decent score, but nothing that blew us out of the water? But this should be a great matchup for her.
Yeah, you'd think so. I think, she got the inside time. I think she also had like a period on the bench in the second quarter last week where they were assessing her for injury, which she passed and everything was fine. But yeah, I think Shelley Heath at the price she's at just seems like a really easy pick.
Yeah. Is she the best, value versus points on field player as a defender this week? Because that's what I currently think.
Yeah, I think handily. I don't really think there's another option even close, to be honest.
Serene?
Well, good value, but he's still more expensive than Heath. And I think Watson's had, down scores in the same role, whilst Heath's are all much more clearly explained. Like her score in the 30s was a 20% time on ground, whilst Watson's was just a full game that she didn't contribute in.
Do anything.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that's a good point. And then I think there's another, probably before we go off too quickly, the other thing to think about with Port Adelaide, particularly if you're thinking about a Port Adelaide mid, is the return of Piper Window. Thankfully, Port Adelaide give incredible injury reporting. They've said 1 to 3 weeks, which is, in the context of AFLW fantasy, a yawning chasm of time and not at all helpful when it comes to picking your side. So I'm just saying that I don't think you'd be trading into Woodland at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's not just window, but we've got Lauren Young coming back soon. Kirsty Lamb comes back into the side. Abby Darrick only played like
19%.
Yeah, that was really surprising. So I think they're very undecided on their midfield mix at the moment. And I don't know. You don't want to have those games where Woodland just sits deep forward, puts up a 30. A couple of those games last season really killed me. So
really, I hadn't heard about those.
Yeah, I mean, this year Port's been a pretty successful clearance team overall. I don't know why they're so, constantly changing it up, but yeah, we'll see. It's something that I would definitely be nervous about. I don't think it's an obvious target this week.
No, I agree with you on that one, but it's probably disappointing given that there's a forward that many of us will probably be looking to upgrade. Alternatively as well, I think we talked about it, Kate Hoare is a more than adequate target this week at her price. It's almost disappointing she went a little too good last week, so has kind of pushed back up above $1 million, but is an excellent target if you are looking to upgrade from Zippy Fish. I also think that Layla Ebert, who has a break-even of 21, so 423K rookie, has played pretty well, is a more than adequate downgrade. If you do have Tessa Boyd and want to try and generate some cash but don't feel comfortable going down to someone below 400K or close to that 300K, I think that's a more than adequate option to look at. Yes, this game is again going to be one where I'm looking at Port Adelaide's roll movements and roll flicking around. Fascinating to see that Goody keeps moving. And then I just suspect that Melbourne will keep on keeping on.
Yeah, agreed.
Now across to the GWS Giants and Western Bulldogs. No changes for the Giants, which is, I'm gobsmacked.
Yeah.
Speechless. We'll break that one down at another time. And then for the Western Bulldogs, out go Cleo Butterfant, Lou Stevenson and Ellie Gavalis, and in come Keely Hardingham, the rookie ruck, Naomi Ferris and Brooke Barwick for her first game of the season. Just quickly looking at some of the omissions, it's fascinating that Stevenson and Gavalis, who are two of the more kind of notable recruits for the Western Bulldogs in the last two seasons, are both dropped.
And I thought Gavalis was playing a very good season. I thought the impact she was having up front was pretty good.
I thought that it was a far more impactful season this year than than last year, where I thought that her disposal was leaving something lacking. But it does speak to the increased depth that the Western Bulldogs that they have managed to pull out. I think the fact that they're still trying to find ways to fit some of their former half forwards into the half back to get everything to fit around the fact that Ellie Blackburn can't get a role in the midfield. The re-addition of Dee Berry, it does make it a very difficult side to kind of stay in. And I think that for Stevenson out, it is as a result of them wanting to blood Hardingham, less so that I think that Stevenson has been terrible and worthy of being dropped.
Yeah.
Hardingham, we can actually discuss it now, that there's probably now 3 rucks that you can downgrade to. Hardingham as the cheapest at 300K. Riggs and Torpy, both who have a break-even of 16. Gun to your head, who do you like the most?
Yeah, I think we're pretty comfortable in Torpy being, the 1 week, and then once Jess Good is back
good this week,
pushed out. So I think I'd probably have them last on the list. I think I'm a big fan of Charlotte Riggs. I really liked what she brings with her run and her overhead capacity. And I think she was unlucky not to win goal of the week, to be honest. So I'm a little nervous with the bench the Eagles have named when we get there, but I'd probably go Riggs first and then Hardingham. The fact they're in the team is pretty exciting. 300K. I think that's better than Torpy to start with. What do you think?
Whereas, it's really tough because I'm personally shocked that of all matchups to debut Hardingham, it's against GWS, who probably have the weakest ruck duo in the competition in Kosh and O'Dowd. Not in terms of what the combined, ruck setup there can do around the ground, but at stoppages, you're not worried about GWS physically imposing themselves on you. And so I'm surprised that they've decided to go with an out-and-out second ruck in the team versus Lou Stevenson, who is more a forward, who is athletically capable to chop out. So
I reckon it's a sign that they might be willing to try Alice Edmonds forward a bit more, because they can always pull the lever and put Hardingham on the bench and put Edmonds back in the ruck when they need it. So I think you could get a good score out of Hardingham if she's in the ruck more. If she's forward more, I'd be a bit worried. But I imagine that's the lever they're trying to pull is Edmonds forward, because her marking's been great this year.
Yep. But I did see some comments from the coach this week at the Western Bulldogs saying, we really think that she's revolutionised where the rucks are able to go and what you're able to do. And I'm just shocked that that's the lever that they've pulled. And so I'm at a loss to kind of weigh her up against the other two that I'd, had penciled in as possible trade, downgrade targets this week from Piper Dunlop. I think that ultimately it's a question of, do you need the cash now or next week, or do you want a slow burn from someone that scored a 12? Because that's the concern on my end for Riggs.
Yeah, but I mean, Riggs is coming off a pretty limited preseason. So that first game to me was like, get used to the pace of the game. I think that second week is more close to what she's going to be scoring going forward.
Yes, but it was in a beautiful matchup for her to score well in too. So, I think that it ultimately comes down, and I hate that this is the case. I think that they're very close in terms of who to target. If you feel like you're going to have the trades next week, I think Torpy is a better option, because I'm far more confident in her ability to make cash.
I just feel like if you're trading into someone is going to be out next week, that just worries me. Even though they are, if they were playing all season, I'd go Torpy ahead of the other two every day of the week.
Yeah, but then if you don't have a red dot, I don't think that it would necessarily need to be a trade next week, which also means that I should be just having a quick look at the fixture, say, for next week and when Carlton play.
But if you're looking for a red dot, why not just go a 300k player and get the full cash value out of them? I mean, isn't that... That is completely fair. It's more, it's not so much that you want a red dot immediately. It's more a case of she can be a 1 week cash player. You know that she's likely to make it given how good she looked last week. Doesn't need to be traded out week one, but is always just sitting there as an extra source of cash where you say, I've made, this much on the dollar. Whereas I don't have that same confidence in Riggs, even though I think she'll play most weeks. And then Hardingham has the best scoring pedigree of any ruck that was, at 300k. But I just don't know what's going on with her selection this week of all weeks. Yeah.
And I think you make a fair case on maybe Edmonds forward, and I just don't know if we know enough about whether or not they think Hardingham's a forward.
Have you seen Hardingham's last game in the VFLW?
Yes, it was that 140-something and a million.
Yeah, of 27 touches, 43 hitouts. I mean, you can see why they want her in the team.
Yeah, 100%. It's a really tough one for me. But let's not get too bogged down on that topic. In terms of, I think that might be the main points of discussion in this game. Again, just keep an eye out for what shenanigans go with key forwards and key backs at GWS, because something crazy invariably happens. And also, it's almost a case of hoping and praying that there isn't someone else that Cam Bernasconi picks to be the inside midfielder in place of Zali Goldsworthy, who has once again last week, had a quarter where she was deep forward, still managed to score a little bit, but it is always concerning when you see that at the beginning of a quarter and you just worry what's he done now? Who's he replaced?
100%.
Yeah, well, let's move along to Sunday's games. These are, again, always extended squads. Now, Essendon, out goes Brooke Walker, another ACL, which is just brutal. And in come Bonnie Toogood, Mia Van Dyke, Grace Brooker and Courtney Murphy. Bonnie Toogood has been named on the ground and the rest of those have been named on an extended bench. In terms of St Kilda, out go Ella Friend, who has been concussed and so will miss at least this week. And also Mel's favourite Zoe Basenko has been omitted. So she can't, she will score a 0, which means she's continuing the trend in her team. And in come Ariana Clark, Nat Plain, Lilu Hung, Nicola Stephens and Irene Karras. In terms of which players have been named on the bench, I think Stephen has been named on the ground.
Yep.
And then they haven't named Lilu Hung as a debutant yet, so hold the phone on whether or not she'll actually play.
Yep.
Ariana Clark on the bench. I think Nat Plain, that means... Sorry, I'm just trying to analyse this one live.
Yeah.
Nat Plain on the bench and Ariana Clark. So my guess is that, like, Ella Friend is replaced 1-for-1 by Nicola Stephens, and then it's a question of whether or not St Kilda want a second ruck and bring in Reen Karras, or possibly debut Lilu Hung, or even throw Nat Plain forward in Basenko's absence. I don't know if you necessarily need extra height against the Bombers' defence. We barely have any in defence to begin with. But just one to keep an eye on. I think the main thing we probably want to talk about from this game is Bonnie Toogood back from suspension. We talked about it on the podcast earlier this week, and I also went away today and did some analysis on the last time that Daria Bannister was out, as she missed last week. And that was in 2023. And that was Bonnie Toogood's elite season. Toogood was 10 points better off without Bannister in the side, surprisingly. And the Bombers didn't really have another key forward. So if you were thinking that maybe you could go Bonnie Toogood, there is at least some, albeit small sample size evidence that she's better without Bannister playing. I still personally feel that it's the fact that her role had already been very deeper than we'd seen in 2023 when she was a top forward, combined with having very few other players that are trustable playing as deep forward targets, that are the reason why Bonnie Toogood is possibly a play too risky to trade in.
Well, yeah, it's kind of I agree with everything you've said there, but the only consideration when you say that she's too risky to bring in is that she is still priced very, very cheap.
Yeah, that's fair. It's more I have low expectations.
Yeah.
I think you could be trading in some like high 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say that's probably the most likely scenario, particularly against the Saints, who are a pretty strong back line. I guess the run doesn't get much easier after that.
The run is dreadful.
Yeah.
Like, there is no easy matchups for forwards for Essendon for a while.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if you're someone who's got Laura Stone on field and, say, Darcy Vesio on your bench, I think in that situation, I'm not so confident that those two are going to put up consistent 50s. So in that instance, would you be happy going down? Because otherwise you've got to go all the way up to someone much better, really. Yeah.
Maybe we kind of let's park that discussion. We might have a bit more discussion about Stone in a minute because I think it's definitely going to come up. But yes, I think you raised some reasonable points. Like, she's at such a good price point for someone who's gone 100 plus before. But it is, again, a case of managing expectations on what Bonnie can do. Grace Brooker is a potential debutant. We kind of already mentioned Lilu Hung as a potential debutant as well. I would be shocked if the Bombers name Courtney Murphy. So for anyone that still has her. I don't think I'd be getting my hopes up all that much. And I guess that's the other thing as well for Too Good. Brooke Walker was another forward that we'd had been, playing, and I think she's mid 170 centimetres tall, so can play a little bit taller.
Yeah,
I think that's just another nail in the coffin for her as an option personally. But I get that for a lot of people, it's just going to be a case of cash, and she's that cheap. But let's not. We're really getting bogged down in some of these. Let's try and whip through. Richmond and Geelong. Out goes Lauren Brazzali, named in Grace Egan, who had mentioned, Amelia Yasir, Kate Dempsey, and Katie Brennan. So 4 best 21 players from last year, all named as potential ins. And then for the Cats, Claudia Gunjaka, Bridie O'Rourke, and Caitlin Thorne have all been named in without any omissions. Geez, it must be bloody tough to do selection at the Tigers this week, given that the names that they've brought in. Now, Yasir had been dropped last week, so he's necessarily a guarantee to come back in. But the other 3 had all been through some form of injury or rest.
Yeah.
If you had a look at the extended bench at the moment, who's missing?
Well, you need 3 names, right? So I'd say Mackenzie Ford, maybe Charlie Wicksteed, and maybe Yasir doesn't make it back in because it's a pretty strong extended bench as far as Richmond players go. Jeez, it's not an easy one to pick.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a Wicksteed versus Isabel Bacon. Bacon, who did have her best game against Melbourne, but I also think it was the best game that I'd seen in a little while from Wicksteed too. And I don't necessarily feel that Richmond are loving the performance of Caitlin Cox at the moment. After having been thrown back forward. On the side of the Cats, Gunjaka comes in immediately. O'Rourke has a surprisingly high ownership, as well as Caitlin Thorne having one of the best break-evens of any player. What is her... I think she's expected to make like bulk cash. If she, a break even of 20, and she had 67 in the first round. So just a name to keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
She did give away a bunch of free, so I don't think she's necessarily guaranteed to bring in. But the bench at the Cats is very young. So it's Kilpatrick, Talariti, Mason, Thorne, Bella K-Smith, and Bridie O'Rourke are all on an extended bench. So I won't be shocked if Thorne comes back in. You might take a stab if you're, again, desperate for cash to roll through on the bench, given that all she needs is a 20, and even if it's a 50, that's a solid amount of cash to make. I think we might... we've already kind of discussed probably the most important player from this game in Sierra Greaves. We might have a discussion about Aisling Maloney when we talk about Laura Stone in a minute. Moving to that game, Adelaide against Hawthorn down at Kinetic Stadium in Frankston. No outs for either team. The ins for Adelaide, Rochelle Martin, Lily Tarleton and Hannah Ewings. And then for Hawthorn, it's Daisy Flockhart, Eileen Gilroy and Jasmine Fleming.
I'm so relieved, honestly. This is like the best ins we could have had.
I'm sorry, shush. This is the worst set of ins we could have had for owners of Laura Stone. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I suppose we've got two different perspectives.
This actual fandom business. Put that away. We need to be concerned about the fantasy impact at the moment. Jasmine Fleming back is a shock. That's an extremely quick recovery, given it was around 6 or 7 return was their conservative estimate, was their estimate kind of at the outset of the injury. Come back by round 5 is extremely quick. Eileen Gilroy is a walk-up start. I don't know necessarily if Daisy Flockhart will get a debut. Does this immediately spell the end for Laura Stone as a fantasy option, named on the bench? And she started on the bench last week too. Didn't start at the CBA.
Yeah.
Is she a must-trade now?
I suspect she'll still play. I don't think she's going to get dropped. I think we've got other options that will fall out of the team first. But I definitely don't see her getting the midfield time that she once had. I mean, Fleming goes straight back in. I think she's, depending on fitness concerns, I think she's immediately a 70% CBA player. And the fact that they've named Hipwell on ball, I think means she's probably in there next. And Laura Stone's very much pushed to the outside. So against a difficult matchup like the Crows, I don't think you can really rely on Stone scoring her usual sort of 55 to 65 score. I think we could see a down week. I'm definitely going to trade her out this week.
Yeah, and as much as I'd love to be able to carry her forward just one extra week because there's some trades I really would have loved, I do agree. I think she becomes a higher priority trade. Now that she is a trade, I've got a list of some trade-in targets. Just shout if there are any that stand out to you as A, terrible, or B, amazing, or ones that you prefer. Caitlin Gould, not with a great matchup this week, but has Gold Coast next week. Taylor Harris, Eden Zanker, Jessie Wardlaw, all of whom have very good runs and are possibly underpriced. And then Imogen Barnett, who is a top 5 forward at the moment and playing very well and has a pretty solid run for rucks.
Yep.
Those are what I see as the upgrade options. We already kind of talked about Bonnie Toogood as being probably the value trade-in. Are there any names that stand out to you there as ones that you love or ones that you hate?
Yeah, I think Barnett is probably my favourite option from that list. I worry a little
And the most expensive.
And the most expensive, yeah. I worry a little bit with Zanker that now, like in the first game that Heath has gotten through completely fit after, spending extended periods off in 2 games, she didn't get any midfield time. I think it was like 7% CBAs. So I do worry. I know that she does still push up, but I think that's where she gets the majority of her points in those big quarters, is sort of pushing up, getting those tackles, extra disposals around the ball. And that doesn't happen when she's sitting as deep forward. So I know it's a good matchup, and I'm not necessarily trading her out because I do have her in the side, but I have my question marks on bringing her in at the moment. So I think
she did spend most of the last quarter off, though, against Richmond after she was assessed for an HIA. And she was going into the midfield, and then they pulled her off. Yeah. So
it's not a massive, I'm not trading her out on my side or anything. I just have my hesitations on bringing her in.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And another name I probably should have added in there is Aisling Maloney.
Yeah.
With Richmond this week, has been pretty solid this year. Richmond, Yatapulti, Hawthorn, Carlton, GWS, and Yatapulti, Port Adelaide, and then Fremantle in her next 6. Only one of those matchups is bad, and that's Hawthorn. And then the rest are very good. For the rest of the season, Geelong have a top 4 run for forwards. For matchups wise,
I think Maloney is probably the best target of all, to be honest. Just with that, I mean, the first couple games were so difficult, so her price is really not that bad. Like you compare it to Barnett, pretty much the same price.
They are, yeah, they're the same price, averaging, except Maloney's averaging 70, Barnett's averaging 76.
Yep.
Off nearly identical scores last week too, fascinatingly.
Yeah, but if you looked, only at, say, the last 3 weeks, and you cut out that game against North, which I think is difficult for everyone, except for Barnett, apparently, then Maloney's got the better average. So I don't know. I feel like Maloney's got the ceiling that I really like. And I think Geelong's midfield is looking much more impressive this year than last. And they could get on a really big roll over the next month or so.
Yeah. I think it's a very tough one. I think that it's worthwhile mentioning that Collingwood have Sydney, who have been a good matchup to score against for rucks so far this year, and then the Western Bulldogs in 3 weeks, and then also Fremantle. If you just want to, look at ruck matchups for the rest of the year, Barnett is not a bad option either.
Yeah,
I personally maybe lean towards the consistency of Barnett, but I still say that knowing that a lot of her points come from intercept marks, which is insane for a ruck. Like what's in the water at Collingwood this year. Darcy Cameron was doing the same in the men's. And then Aisling Maloney comes with the risk of a key forward. So still 2 very good trading options for my mind. Two other names, if you are looking very cheap, who I think have looked all right and have decent roles, Kate Kenny and Brooke Boileau. Kenny really stood out to me against Essendon as someone who popped. Kind of probably showed the most we've seen from a small forward at Geelong so far this year, or at least a half forward.
Yeah.
Michaela Bowen is not the same. Like, Michaela Bowen's not a forward in my eyes, as much as she might get named there on the team sheet sometimes.
Yeah. No, she pushes up to stoppage constantly. So I think just an extra midfielder in my mind.
Yeah. And then I think it's probably worthwhile mentioning as well, I do worry about the job security of both Ellie Simmons and Hayley McLaughlin. Hayley McLaughlin for the potential for the return of Gilroy, given that I think Gilroy moves straight back to half forward. And that's kind of been where McLaughlin has lived so far this year. I'm personally surprised as well to see that Sophie Butterworth has been named on field. I probably thought that it was more likely to be, oh my goodness, what's the name of the Mackenzie Eardley who gets named at full forward, and then Gilroy is immediately thrown on field. But I'll be fascinated to see teams tomorrow.
If I had to take a stab at this, I would say Flockhart, Lavinia Cox and Grace Barber are the ones knocked off the bench. I think Butterworth is covering for Hipwell forward because Hipwell does present as a tall target. I think that's sort of why those changes will be made. I would be surprised if McLaughlin was dropped. But, if we had to go down one extra player, she's probably in the firing line after that. So,
yeah. And I think, yes, I do agree with you. It's more just raising it as a not impossibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move along then to the Brisbane Lions against North Melbourne. Lovely that the AFL has scheduled two top four matchups from last year at the same time. It's beautiful.
Honestly, wild. Yeah.
Let's not go there. Let's not get ourselves in trouble. For Brisbane, named on no outs, same for North. Named on an extended bench, we have Evie Long, Rainier Crozier, and Jacinta Baldwick. And then, there's an embarrassment of riches for North. Jasmine Garner, Emma King, and Amy Gavin Mangan named. Jasmine Garner named immediately on field. Yeah. Emma King was named as a possible in last week and then ended up spending time playing in the scratch match instead. So not a guarantee, but I would be very shocked if this is a second week in a row where she doesn't get named. And then I don't think Amy Gavin Mangan is going to get picked. Not necessarily any players in here that scream as trade options this week from these teams. I'm just fascinated to see what happens when squads get cut down.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few players I want to have in my team later in the season. I don't necessarily think this is the matchup you want to have them in. I just can't believe that Jazz Garner has been named. This is like so much earlier than we would have expected.
I don't know if you've seen. I've seen a photo of this still of video footage of Jasmine Garner's ankle when she did it. How is she playing in a week? And it sounds like possible she could have played last week if the game really mattered.
Yeah.
Sorry, Collingwood fans. She's a cyborg. She's a freak. Yeah. It's just there's no other way around it.
Is there a world where they're just doing this to mess with Brisbane's match preparations? Because you have to plan around Jazz Garner.
For a lot of other teams, maybe, but I don't get the sense that this is the week that because Brisbane and North have played that many times against each other. These teams are largely similar to when they've last played against each other.
Yeah.
It's not like you go, that extra 24 hours really threw us. We weren't going to know what to do. We don't have someone we've played on Jasmine Garner in the middle, but now, and who can play in defence in Brie Conan. You've really stumped us here, guys.
Yeah, no, this is just me getting hopeful, being an Eilish Sheeran
I'd like
owner.
That's probably the most important point of discussion. Eilish Sheeran probably spends less time in the midfield now, which has also some flow-on effects to, it's Emma Carney and Erica Roche. This team is stacked. Like, what the hell? This is insane. if Emma King's going to come back in, one of Mia King, Eilish Sheeran, Tess Craven, Vicky Wall, Bella Eddy, and Ariana Hetherington need to not play. And I actually think Ariana Hetherington's already going to be named out. But it's ridiculous. Yeah. And now there's moving things around, and about 4 other relevant options are now going to lose out as a result.
Yeah. No, it's such a stacked team. I can't see the third person they drop this week if Emma King comes in and Jazz Garner comes in. I can't name the 3 who are going to be out. It's way too hard.
Yeah, I do not envy team selection. I also just think that, it probably rules out for me. Well, it makes it Erica O'Shea more of a watch, possibly as a trade out, possibly look to upgrade soon. If Eilish Sheeran looks to get more game time and take some scoring away now that Emma Carney is also back. It's going to be a game that will be priority viewing on Sunday afternoon for real football and a fantasy football sense. Let's go to the final game of the round, though. Let's have a look at Fremantle against the West Coast Eagles. Out for Fremantle are Joanne Craig and Jess Lowe, with Craig omitted, Lowe injured, and then named to play Emma O'Driscoll, Matilda Banfield, Amy Mulholland, Pip Seth, and Dana East. For West Coast, out injured is Courtney Lindgren. Named in Amy Franklin, Kaylee Kavanagh, Dana Hooker, and Belinda Smith. Right off the bat, Belinda Smith will be her first game of the season, has been a defender last year for West Coast. Possibly some good signs if you are still a Jess Wrench owner and don't feel like you can trade her out this week. Yeah. It does give them an extra option down there. I'd still be trading her out.
I should mention that when I was chatting with Emma Swanson in the preseason, she was saying that Belinda Smith had been training up the ground, so potentially more of a wing or half-forward role could be happening. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee she's going straight back to defence.
I think that there has been a number of probably changes to the structure of this team since, just based on some injuries too. Like they've had to make some shifts around, and that probably brings us on to the next most important player in this game, Courtney Rowley, named on ball.
Exactly what you want to see. Yeah.
I just want to be very clear here. I do not trust it on field in any way, shape, or form.
No.
I do not trust bringing in Rowley on field at all.
And yet I know people who are. It's really tempting.
You know people. You know person. Person who is doing it.
That person is doing it. Yeah, Will is definitely doing it at this stage. But I know other people. It's people that Will has also convinced and conspired with.
It was a similar role for Rowley the week prior when she scored nothing. She scored 14.
It was similar, but I think, it was a 48% CBA role. It's one where you're getting bounced around throughout the game. In that one, she was there the whole time. She was best on ground. Surely they're not moving around that position.
No, I don't think it's so much that they're moving around. It's more that she will just be inconsistent.
Yeah. I definitely am not expecting another 100+ score. I think that's not on the table.
What my guess is a 60.
Yeah.
This week.
Yeah.
Which I think that she'll. Well, here's one for you. Who scores more, Greaves or Rowley?
I was just thinking of that same question, and I was hoping to ask you so I wouldn't have to answer it.
Well, I at least gave you my prediction for Rowley's score.
Yeah.
So this requires you to have a score projection for Greaves.
Yeah. I would probably have Rowley on field over Greaves, and that doesn't feel right given she's gone back-to-back 70s. I just feel like Rowley's got the ceiling potential. And I feel like the difference between a 60 and a 70 is fine. But if it does happen again, then you get that benefit, I think Rowley's floor is going to be higher than Greaves.
I'm
glad I don't have to make this decision because I can only trade one of them in with the trades that I'm planning on doing. So,
well, which one are you currently planning to trade in?
Well, currently
the question
neither,
there.
but I'm more likely to trade in Rowley than I am Greaves.
Fascinating. I personally think that, I'm pretty sure at this stage, the highest scorer for West Coast has changed each week. And I do think that speaks to the way that they are set up, which is very Melbourne-esque in that quite often the highest scorer, or maybe let's disregard Melbourne this season, but quite often those teams have rolled through who the highest scorers are each and every week. I just feel like Greaves is such an important part to the only thing that's been positive at Richmond so far this year. And that is the fact that she is actually already within their best, 3 or 4 ball movers.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just think sometimes when these rookies come in, there's the excitement and the adrenaline of those first few games. It sort of pushes you through, and then you see a down score. I feel like that's a really common thread that you see with rookies. So I agree that Greaves' role is not changing. I'm just worried that every rookie has their down score, and I don't want Greaves to be on field when it happens.
I personally lean towards Greaves on field. I think she's again probably up for a 70, Rowley a 60.
It's a tough call. I feel for anyone trying to decide between those two.
Indeed. Well, that has now, we've hit the hour on this on air, but hopefully we've hit a bunch of questions, but we will get to some now. We did have one here. Is Maloney the best forward under Malloy this week? Question from Corey Blackledge. I think, Johnny, you were yes on that.
Yeah, I think I am. Assuming you already have Ham and Goldsworthy, I would say Malloy. I'd say Maloney is definitely the next one off the rank.
Yeah, and I maybe lean slightly towards Barnett, but I think it's very close.
Yeah.
Would you rather Stone/Bogue to Woodland or Fish to Bowers/Hoare, meaning fielding one of Stone or Bogue? Also, would you trade Ott and keep Boyd for future cash generation, or trade Boyd and keep Ott for bench cover? That's actually probably a player that we didn't discuss, which is Tessa Boyd, who is now confirmed out. Let's deal with the first one.
Yeah.
Stone Bogue to Woodland or Fish to Bowers/Hoare?
Yeah, tough call. I would probably go Bogue on field and take Fish up to Hoare, because I think Hoare's kind of got that ceiling that you could get a bigger score than Woodland. But it's a tough call there. What would you go?
I agree with you. I think you're just fielding Bogue, even though the matchup is difficult, I still think it's passable. And, I also think there's a case to be made that it's a great matchup for Fish this week. You could hold Fish and actually trade Stone up to Maloney or Barnett, as opposed to going up to Woodland.
Yeah.
And if that was the case, I think the Woodland bit is the bit that I dislike the most in these options. Yeah. And then also we probably need to talk about Tessa Boyd. Is she a hold or is she a trade out?
Yeah, it's so frustrating because I feel like if she played, it would be an easy hold, and if she was 2 weeks out, it'd be an easy trade. This 1 week,
it's the 1 week.
Oh, it's a killer. I think it's a trade out. I don't think it's a priority trade out. So I think if you're going to be fielding someone of Rebecca Ott's quality either way, then you may as well hold.
It's if you're going to the Indy Stroms of the world, where you start to get a little bit worried.
Yeah. Does Rebecca Ott, is that a worry if Reen Karras comes in?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because that's already, high 40s, low 50s. If that drops down to a 30, I'd be a little bit worried. So it could be one that, based on team announcements, you have to decide on.
Yeah. But I do think the main takeaway is that Tessa Boyd is not a priority trade out. She probably sits second or third on the lists in your team, versus others where it's been like, this has got to be done immediately. Okay. So, question from friend of the pod, Bales: who's the best 300k rookie to get in utility? Harrington, Hardingham, or someone else? Say a red dot, plays for Port Adelaide, forward. I don't know who that could be.
Yeah, it's hard because I think that's a similar decision that I'm making this week. And I think it does come down to Harrington and Hardingham. I think they're better than a lot of the other options presenting. I'm assuming this is in the scenario that Bales can't get up to a Vickers or someone like that. So it's dead on 300. I feel like I'm leaning Hardingham, and I'm not confident in that. Where are you leaning at the moment?
Yeah, like away from having to answer the question. If I'm being perfectly honest, I would say that I might lean Hardingham. Maybe just a question of team balance as well. If you do have red dots, you need to worry about. Maybe having that extra coverage in the ruck isn't ideal, personally.
But I like the idea of having if I'm going to have a red dot on my team, I probably want it to be in the rucks. So it means that next week I could get rid of Piper Dunlop to any line, to any rookie that pops, and I'd still have that ruck coverage. So I think it's the best one if it fails, and it's probably against the Giants as well. It's probably got the highest ceiling if it succeeds.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I think we might lean towards Hardingham. Let's have a look at some other questions. So, who's the bigger priority trade out, Laura Stone or Havana Harris?
Ooh. I'd say if it's on field, which I imagine both are, I'd probably say Havana Harris. I don't think Stone will score particularly well, but I think Harris has got a very tough matchup. And I suppose the upside of where you can take your rucks is pretty big.
Yes, because I think that there's a whole bunch of options this week. I think Strom is obviously a talismanic target.
Yeah, but you can also comfortably go Morfitt or O'Dowd or so many options.
Yeah, that's the player I want to mention. Ailish O'Dowd has just an insane run coming up for rucks, and we know as well that she can accumulate around the ground. So I think that Harris is absolutely where I'd be going. Got a question here from Doug Fitzpatrick, who talks about being up there for a hat at the moment. Congratulations, mate. Hope you do solidly, not better than us, but obviously solidly. Here are some trade plans. Stone to Toogood, Boyd to Heath, Fish to Sheeran, only 1 to 2 week, can't get Hall, but also gets all rookies off field. Or is it... okay, and then that means that it's D5 is Heath/Paxman, M5 is Sheeran, R1 is Schultz, and F5 is Toogood. One that sounds like a very solid side.
Yeah.
I think that there are two. I think there's one big error there, or one big issue. It's Ailish Sheeran.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one where I'm trying to get Sheeran out of my side just because of that Jazz Garner return. I think if Garner doesn't play, if she's named out, then I think you could follow through with those trades. Obviously, there's that concern over Toogood we talked about earlier, but I think on the whole, I think it'll be fine. But if Garner plays, then Sheeran's potentially back to that 40, even 30 scorings that we saw in the first couple rounds. That would be very worrying.
Yeah, I agree, and I wouldn't. And that might be a question again of still managing her game time. It was still relatively low last week, as you were more than aware of. If instead of going Ailish Sheeran, and I obviously know that this is one of my players, Ronnie Fitzpatrick has a break even of 44 this week.
Yeah.
She is cheaper than Ailish Sheeran. If you're doing it for a week because you can't get up to Kate Hoare, what do you know? Look at who she's playing. It's the Gold Coast Suns.
It's not a bad shout, yeah.
I know it's with, a lot Mackay more than what she was priced at start, yes.
I mean, Ronnie's one of those players that could run through the middle.
And I just think that she's in ripping form too. Yeah. 109 against Brisbane was spectacular. Time on ground is also elite. 92, 93, 94 in the last 3 weeks is amazing. Kicks goals. I'd be almost willing to do that more than the alternative. And if Shanae Goody had put up a second good score last week, or if Lammy hadn't been back, maybe that's another spot you could chance your arm. But she's got a 60 and maybe loses some of her mid-time, goes back to the wing. But I just think that those set of trades fall down massively on Ailish Sheeran.
Yeah.
There's almost a world where you consider saying just hold Fish for a week. What's her break even? Fish's break even is 86. she scored most above that her first 3 weeks, playing Collingwood. Paxi had her massive game.
60 again. I think it'll be fine.
I think there's a very real world where she holds cash and you use that trade. If you don't need it for a downgrade to generate cash elsewhere, you're more than good enough to roll with Fish this week.
Yeah. The only concern with Fitzpatrick is you've got to be very confident you're jumping off next week, because that North matchup would scare the living daylights out of me.
Nah, she slayed the Lions. I'm sure she'll be fine with North. I don't know what you're worried about. Here's another one. This one is from Ethan. Who do we prefer? We've talked a lot about Kate Hoare, but we haven't talked a whole lot about Ella Roberts off her worst score of the season. Is she a target we should be looking at? 72 against Port Adelaide with a lot more forward time. Was that pesky Rowley taking it all?
Yeah. No, it's a tricky one because I love what Ella Roberts has been doing.
And the run is insanely good too.
Yeah. The only question mark that I have is that she couldn't have put a bigger target on her back after being basically the game winner in most of the matches they've played. So,
yeah. Well, rounds 1 and rounds 3, she's got 3 votes both times.
Yeah, without question. And I'd be surprised if she didn't have, a 1 vote in one of the other 2 games as well. I think she's been very impressive. Having said that, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have her as like a high priority target. I think there are options around it that I'd probably feel more confident in. But I wouldn't say that she's a bad option either. I think from here, I'd expect her to go over 95 as an average. I think she's going to bounce around is the only thing.
But then it's just the matchups are just going to be that good for her. Got Fremantle, Melbourne, GWS, Collingwood, Adelaide. It's shaping as a pretty nice run. At least up until that Adelaide game. The next 4 are all pretty spectacular. I have a feeling she could go nuclear against GWS too.
Yeah.
Versus specifically Kate Hoare, who's probably been the one we've discussed most at an attainable value, as much as I do also love Laura Gardner this week, given what I think she could do first game up against Collingwood.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a question, though. I think Ella Roberts, when she's playing midfield, has a great run. If she's playing forward, I would imagine that Melbourne matchup's a little bit harder. And she does bounce around a lot.
That's some just insane analysis. No, you make a good point. Yeah, it's not as good playing against Melbourne. It's one good matchup, 2 neutrals, 2 slightly bads in her next 5. I don't know. I just don't know week to week what position she's going to spend the most time in.
Yeah. It creates a very difficult prediction. I
hate it. I hate having to put my finger on it because it is such a brutal spot to be in. I think I might just prefer Hoare because I have some more trust in her spot in the team every week with the injuries that they have and the fact that she is the captain.
Yeah. And if Hoare is thrown forward, she'll probably still score well given their matchups and how Melbourne's travelling at the moment.
And the difference, so Kate Hoare 1.109 versus Roberts, who is 1.194. That's 90K. It's nothing to turn your nose up at. Maybe that's what swings it in one direction.
Yeah.
All right, let us get one more question. We're nearly at the hour 15 mark. Would you go... okay, hang on. Would you go Conti/Hanks and Georgia Stathis/Carney as one set of trades, or Noffy with a cheaper Thomas or Watson type defender?
Oh, that's fascinating. I think you've got to
None of those names you've mentioned are bad. I like all of them.
No, when you said the first option, I was going, well, whatever the alternative is, it's going to be that because that's a great trade. But if you don't have Noffy, I mean, I feel like if you haven't started Noffy and you've gotten through the first 4 weeks, you're in a great spot And if you get it now, you neutralize the risk of her starting to hit those 170s again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to go there almost.
I think I agree with you, except for the fact that, Hawthorn's a brutal matchup this week.
Yeah.
And then I wonder if she'll get tagged by Lucy Single the week after.
Yeah. I mean, Marinoff went 131 against the Hawks last year, which was her third lowest score for the season.
Didn't she have to put up like a 70-point quarter to do that?
I mean,
or am I mad?
But, you could say that about literally every game she had last year. There had to be a 50-plus quarter in every game, given the scores she was putting up. Let me see if I can find that game.
Okay, let me look it up. Okay, in terms of Conti/Hanks and Georgia Stathis and Carney, what combination do you prefer?
All right, I think I'd probably go Georgia Stathis just because I feel very confident that she's scoring well no matter what her position is. Carney, I think the matchup this week is tough, and we know that if Garner comes back in, Sheeran's probably pushed back to the half-back line. I'd love to see what that looks like for Carney before trading into it. Between Conti and Hanks, that's about as tough a decision as you can go. I'd probably lean toward Conti based on history, but Tyler Hanks hasn't put a foot wrong this year, so that's a tough call.
I'm misremembering, Marinoff was just fine, 39, 38, 35, and then a 19-point last quarter for only 130. I guess we were just hyped because she was nearly at 100 at halftime, and we were going, oh, wow, who can do this? And as it turns out, the answer was her all the time.
All the time, yeah.
All right, well, I think we will wrap it up there. Jono, can I bother you for your quick trade plans at the moment? Even if, you're weighing up some options, maybe your trade outs at least.
Yeah. So at the moment, my trade outs are Laura Stone, Isla Sheeran, and Lucy Wales. And I think I'm probably going to be bringing in Keely Hardingham as a utility and then bringing in Kate Hoare and Mim Strom. This all is
good trades.
It's predicated on one thing, though, is that it means that I have Darcy Vescio on field, which I hate. I hate a lot. What my plan is I don't have to lock into any of those trades until Sunday. I can see the first 2/3 of that game, and then I think Lauren Young would lock on field. So I'm basically going to see if Vescio puts up something that's higher than 45. I think I'm just going to lock into it. But if it's a disaster, then I'll probably take Sheeran down instead of up, and then see if I can get Laura Stone up. Actually, this isn't going to work. I might have to dump out of the Lucy Wales to Mim Strom, run Wales for another week, and then take Stone up somehow.
Yeah, geez, you've got a lot to juggle on your plate. I had been looking at going Schultz and Fish to Gardner and Strom.
Oh, that's a great one.
But that requires me keeping Laura Stone. So I need to weigh up whether or not I want to do those trades and risk Stone, who honestly is also named on an extended bench. So I'm just, guarding myself against disappointment. Or do I, instead of getting Gardner, as disappointing as that would be, getting Hoare in, and then that allows me to upgrade Stone to whichever forward I want that isn't Chloe Molloy. So it would be weighing up Barnett and Maloney.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that it could be possibly a trade in the forward line every single week. Really love churning through the lowest value position in my team. That's great.
Yeah.
But I really was happy to launch into Gardner for so long as Fleming wasn't playing. So maybe Fleming's not fit. Maybe Fleming doesn't play this week.
Yeah, maybe.
Give me the hope, please. please.
Yeah, I'd be so surprised. It's quick. It's a quick turnaround.
It is extremely quick. So and I've now got extra things to worry about. I've got Erica O'Shea as a concern now that Sheeran and Carney are playing. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one. Good luck, everyone. Hope you have got what you wanted and we've managed to yap our ways into the question that you had going into trades this week. Hope you have a successful weekend and you will hear from us again on Tuesday next week. Cheers.
See you, everyone. Good luck.